and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And we're back for another episode of the Angle of Pursuit podcast. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. It is All-Star Week. We will be breaking down the open race, the All-Star race, and just kind of look in a general philosophy, I guess, for this upcoming weekend. And obviously got to dive back into the week that was, because Brian Twining, we had ourselves a week.
We sure as hell did, baby. That's right.
Sure as hell had ourselves a week. Before the William Byron fan club gets going, how are you? How's everything going?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Like you said, I'm still floating on a little bit of euphoria after last weekend.
Yeah.
As many of you know, we were riding the Willie B train into Darlington there, and obviously that paid off late. Yeah. Much to do with Ross Chastain having another run-in with his buddy Kyle Larson. But yeah. I mean, all in all, I'm still riding high off of that, but I'm extremely excited for this All-Star race. I think we're going to see some interesting things. It's a track that it's interesting to note only 2 drivers in the Cup Series were even old enough to have their learner's permit, let alone actually drive a car. The last time this race was ran at NASCAR with NASCAR back in 1996. And I think there's 4 guys that are going to be participating that weren't even born yet the last time we were here.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that they're, it's not something they're building into the regular rotation. Maybe it happens down the road if this is successful, but at least, go back and visit vintage tracks, go back and find unique opportunities, because this is an all-star race, right? At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. So let's have some fun with it. Let's do some unique things and make a really cool event. But yeah, let's dive into the week that was. And I will present the screen. This one. So, so let me throw. I don't know why it doesn't do this. Okay. Had a good week. Obviously having William Byron in your DraftKings lineup definitely helps. He was strong. Chase Elliott was strong. Obviously, the race had some moments. It definitely felt like it was going one way until it wasn't. I always love when Larry Mack gets on the call and is like, well, traditionally we have our last caution within about 5 laps, and sure enough, clockwork, we find a way to get to the caution. And we'll talk about our betting card here in a second, but we both added Larson. I was feeling really good about adding Larson Sunday morning. Just because of the way that race was going. Larson was really fast. He looked like one of the best cars. And then obviously Chastain was great, and we were excited about him, his potential. And that ended quickly. The race overall I thought was pretty fun. There was a few guys. Truex felt really dominant for a while. But there's one thing, like, it feels like and this may be just like kind of how we remember it, but I sure feel like the guys that are traditionally doing well in stage 1 and stage 2 aren't going to be the winner. Like, I feel like I've had a bunch of tickets on guys that have been crushing for 80% of the race, and then at stage 3 happens and they don't come close. And then I've had other guys that have hit, and they were basically afterthoughts or kind of floating around for most of the stage 1 and stage 2. So it's really interesting to see how that progresses. And I guess even more reason to keep an eye on those live betting opportunities.
Oh yeah, I mean, just like you said, it's either been a case of somebody having a pit road speeding penalty, or just a mistake on pit road, or running into Ross Chastain or Brad Keselowski. It always seems to work out that way, where the guy who jumps out to the lead early is just not taking home the wins here. And like you said, it's really bringing to light the kind of necessity of being able to access those live markets, because there's a lot of money to be had there. For instance, even though we had Willie B on the card early in the week as a pre-race bet, like with about 10 laps to go and he was riding 4th, I went and looked at our offshore, and I could have jumped in back at him. I think it was 9-1 or 10-1 again. And I almost considered firing on it again for another unit or two, just because like he had a legit shot, and you knew that Chastain and Larson running side by side were eventually going to get into each other. It was just a matter of whether or not they'd wreck each other.
Well, and it's a good, like, it's a smart bet, right? Because there was, like, we were talking a little bit about it. There was really 3 guys that were dominant after Truex had his incident and kind of fell away. It was really Byron, Chastain, and Larson who were the fastest by far.
Yeah.
Chase was really impressive, but I felt like he was a little bit of a tier below. And then obviously Bubba was really, really good for a lot of the race. Obviously had his incidents, was still able to mangle a top 5. And we'll talk about that too, because I'm very excited about how that came together. But Byron was on the short list of guys that felt like they were incredibly fast and had a real shot to win. So I think paying attention, especially in stage 3, okay, who's been fast? Who do I think can really win this? Let me monitor the market, see if I can find a live betting opportunity. Maybe there's, as they pit and cycle through, the books adjust a little bit, and you can find some value. So overall solid. How about our boy Chris Buescher pulling at a top 10? Probably didn't deserve it, but that's okay.
I was just gonna say, I really can't say he raced himself into a top 10 there. I mean, a lot of that had to do with the people
you gotta
wrecking
put yourself in
but
position, and RFK has been doing it over and over and over again. I also did another lineup Sunday morning, very similar feel. I went the 300 boys. Obviously Larson crashing kind of dropped that, and he was very, very popular. So Elliott and Byron and Larson were 70%. This is in cash, so it makes a lot of sense. Cindric was actually really popular and was probably fine. Harrison Burton was actually the play of the century if you played him in any GPPs, because my God, was that guy really good. Less than 2% owned. I'm curious what his ownership was in GPPs, but pulled out a 6th. Obviously, you could get a nice number on his top 10 even after qualifying 14th. Overall a good week. We've been really putting it together over on DraftKings, Brian. We've had a couple weeks. We had Denny and Larson 2 weeks ago. We had a strong week this week. Like we're starting to get into the flow, which I feel really good about. And then speaking of the flow, let's just get into it. So hell of a week over on the betting card. I jokingly said we're not going to get it all back in 1 week, and it turns out I did get it back in 1 week. So had the Byron outright 10-1, hit that, loved it. Truex top Toyota, I felt good about. I bet that prior to qualifying. Obviously had a really good chance at winning after the way he did. I added the Larson outright at 5-1 based on the speed, based on what I saw in practice and qualifying. And the more I thought about it, I was like, I'm not going to be stubborn and not take a really good number, a shorter number than I really want, just because it's of the number. He's really, really good. I should jump on.
And regardless of the outcome, I feel like that was the bet to make going into the race. And in my opinion, going forward as we come out of the All-Star race this upcoming weekend, Kyle Larson is almost a must add to your card every single week, because he is literally a notch above everybody else right now in terms of what he's able to do on the track.
We're back to the 2 years ago, and I have a feeling he's going to win a handful of races down the stretch, and obviously be a factor. So don't be afraid to go to a short number. It doesn't feel really good, and obviously you might have to bet a little more to get a good payout, but it's worth it. He is that good. Byron top 5 obviously crushes, plus 160. Fine with that. My chase bet, my first best bet from Wednesday, got it at minus 130. It was minus 160, 170 by the time the race started. Obviously he had a great race. Could have probably gone with the top 5 and been fine there. Ty Gibbs was fine, had his moments, never really got there. McDowell was not there. The Harvick top 10, we talked about it. It was, I don't want to say free money, but my God.
And it played out exactly like I had anticipated. He was a top 10 car in that like 5 to 10 range all day. He in no way, shape, or form had any business whatsoever finishing inside the top 3 if it, taking into account like speed and just overall race day. But I mean, he still got finished up there near the front, had a shot at the end. If he would have been if he had a little bit of Ross Chastain in him, who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And then shouts to Bubba. I don't know how to feel about it, because definitely at the end, it didn't feel like he was going to grab that top 5, but because of the restart, he was able to finagle it. So Bubba Wallace, top Toyota at 7-1. Bubba Wallace over Ryan Blaney with 5 units. My best bet from race day, plus 100. Barely beat him, 5 and 6, but I
was just gonna say, and that matchup was great all day, because Ryan Blaney, he ran a lot better than a lot of people had anticipated. And Blaney is a guy who, I mean, we'll see it when we go to the card, the early cards for the All-Star race. He's starting to kind of show his gumption again, and it's All-Star week, and we all know what he did last year.
There's 2 drivers that both of us love that have not won in a long time, yet we keep adding them to the card. Who gets the win first? Ryan Blaney or Ross Chastain?
Right. I mean, I think Blaney is, if you would have to lean Blaney, because he doesn't have anybody on track that's going to be like, you know what, F you, I'm going to punch you out of the way. Whereas Chastain will be cost a win, possibly because of that kind of.
Well, and Ross is also a little too aggressive, a little too early, where Blaney is going to be a lot more comfortable. I just don't know if he's second or third at the end, if he's willing to put his nose where it needs to go in order to
if he's willing to do the Ross Chastain on the last lap. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's an interesting debate. I'm going to be interested. I feel like we get a win from both of them, but at this point, who knows? And then obviously Brad K had to get a top 5 and be 1 spot in front of Bubba, so did not cash that. But overall, a tremendous, tremendous week. I think I'm up 18 units on the week, so that's something that I can live with. Like Byron outright 10-1. Byron top 3, Byron top 5. So William Byron is just like building your bankroll this week, which is you'll love to see it. Brad K top 10. That was a great call on your part. As I mentioned, ended up getting that top 5. Almirola top 10. It's a fine bet.
He was there. He was like running like 12th or 13th pretty much all day. Kind of like I said, he was an 11th to 13th guy at this track,
And then Harvick top 10. Brian, our best bets, all 4-0. Relatively pain-free. I guess Bubba would be the one that was the most questionable. But like I said, he was somebody that was running fast and had a legit chance to win the race at a few different points. So I feel fine about it. So overall, really, really strong week. Obviously, I dug myself out of the hole. You're still working on that, but my God, did you put a big dent into the hole? So you're
climbing like a 15 unit profit. This last weekend.
we absolutely crushed it. So Brian, we got to be smart. Remember, not get too far ahead of ourselves and not put us right back where we were 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Well, the key to that is let's just not bet either the Daytona or Talladega or Atlanta races in the second half,
or Darlington or Dover. So let's talk odds. Obviously, we have a couple races to get into, so we'll talk the All-Star Open, how that works, what we expect to see there, and then we'll dive into the actual race itself. As Brian alluded to, there already is one, I think 2 names on my card. We'll see how aggressive my plan, and we'll see how the plans how I can actually stick to it. But the plan is to grab a couple outrights, fire some low unit plays, and just have some fun with it and not get too crazy. But you know how we get on this show. We talk about that, and then all of a sudden our card is 20 bets deep, and we're regretting everything come the end of the day on Sunday. So let's talk a little bit about the Open. So there's the All-Star Weekend. We'll have a little bit of fun. So Friday's practice, and then they're doing the Pit Crew Challenge again, which was kind of cool last year. I think they're doing a little more of they're timing everybody out instead of doing the head-to-heads, which I think is a little more reasonable because even if you are the second fastest, you could definitely get knocked out. We'll have the truck race on Saturday, and then the 2 heats for the All-Star race will be on Saturday, with the Open and the All-Star race on Sunday. So, the pit crew, 4-tire stop, no fuel, and that will determine
Well, they
the
have to use
lineups.
the fuel tank, but there's no fuel in it, so they have to
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that determines the starting lineups for both the heat races and the All-Star Open. So that will be fun to see. So last year, Brian, I was looking back. Obviously, it was Texas, so it's a little bit of a different story. But Tyler Reddick was the runaway favorite to make it out of the Open and into the field.
Yep.
He was fast, but crashed, didn't make it, and was not one of the favorites. So interesting to see. There's a few guys that have seemed to separate themselves, and obviously the books are keeping the odds somewhat short just because they don't want to get burned. But Josh Berry, obviously in a Hendrick car, has a 3.5, 4-1. Ryan Preece is very, very popular. He's got down to 4-1 in most spots. And then Ty Gibbs. I think these are your elite options in terms of the top tier guys. But I guess, what are you looking at? Because obviously we haven't ran, so we're using a little bit of Richmond, we're using a little bit of Martinsville, a shorter, flatter track. But for the Open portion, do you want the better vehicle? Do you want the better driver? Do you want a little bit of both? Like, where's your head at?
Well, I think it's important too to first note how these guys pit crews are going to do. And I mean, for me, that's got to give the edge to Josh Berry having a Hendrick team. I mean, we all know they are the class act of NASCAR racing teams. I just have to expect that he's probably going to be starting up where in the front couple of rows, maybe the first 2 rows for this race, and being in that equipment, knowing that he finished runner up at Richmond earlier this year to Kyle Larson with a good chance to win. And I suspect, I had mentioned this earlier, if he had been in this car full time, he probably would have battled for the victory as opposed to just holding back and allowing Kyle Larson to take the victory because he wasn't battling for playoff points.
Right.
So for me, the clear edge has to go to Josh Berry, just knowing he's with a Hendrick car and kind of having that pit crew advantage there.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Ty Gibbs is really interesting to me, especially against the competition. We've talked about how strong he's been this year, how much of a seamless transition from Xfinity he's really had, and I've been really impressed with him week in and week out, even in tracks where he it's clearly not his day. He's still pushing, he's still trying hard, and obviously his equipment's pretty solid too. So I don't fault anyone who goes there. I think those two are the most interesting in terms of the outright market. But beyond there, let's have some fun. So we have Almirola. We can get as good as 5-1. And then we drop, and then we're talking Dinger at 10-1, 14-1, McDowell 14, 15-1. Justin Haley, who last year, obviously different track, was really impressive and almost got into the final spot. So interesting, 15, 16, 18-1. And then we're getting into like Gilliland and Harrison Burton. Do you have any interest in any of these longer shots to potentially win the race?
I mean, I like Almirola, but I mean he's not a longer shot guy. It's just hard to get to these bigger numbers with the guys up top, knowing that Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry are both driving elite equipment compared to the rest of the field. And then Michael McDowell, he's been driving a lot better of late, but he's not known as a short track maven, so he's probably not somebody that I think is going to be able to cut his way out of there. But I don't know. Personally, I'm probably not going to lay any coin on the Open race whatsoever. Maybe if there's a few matchups that I find after we see the starting grid set, but I'm probably avoiding this at all costs.
Yeah, Gilliland is the only one that's somewhat interesting to me. And if you go back to Martinsville, he was 7th after stage 2. He qualified decently at some of the Richmond races. I don't love it. but I think he could be somebody that ends up starting a little bit farther forward, and maybe he makes a little bit of sense if you want to take a longer shot. LaJoy is interesting. You know, we talked about his step forward kind of in general as a driver. Don't know that I necessarily love him to win the All-Star race, but he could be somebody that's a little more competitive in this field. So he's, you know, if you want to get real long, 20, 25, 28, you know, that's kind of fun.
I will say, going back on those guys, I wanted to check to make sure that I was right because it's been a while, but Ryan Preece ran pretty well at the Busch Light
Yeah.
opening classic at the LA Coliseum. I know it's completely different tracks, but you know, short track, a lot of off throttle time. So I mean, Preece in an SHR car driving for a team that has Kevin Harvick, who's been fairly successful at short tracks over his career. Maybe somebody else that to consider coming out of this and winning. So
yeah, no, I like that call, and especially because while it is a little bit different, it is a short track. It's divided up into chunks of like segments and stuff, so has a little bit of the same feel. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think really the top of the board is probably where you should be investing, and you know, grabbing a name or two.
But I mean, in the same breath, like it doesn't matter how many people are in the race. I don't know how you justify laying 4-1 on any of these guys in any race, even if there's half the field there. And we're talking, there's only, what is there, 16 guys in this race, 15 cars?
Yeah, but if you think about it, like if you put Ty Gibbs in an Xfinity race, like what would his number be? Probably
That's
around
true,
here.
but he's driving an Xfinity car as
That's
well. It's not
true.
like
I
he's
don't know.
driving like,
Yeah.
especially this year. Like I don't know. It's just hard to even with a limited field to lay 4-1
No,
on any of
I
these
feel
names.
that, but you know, it's a fraction. If you're taking a third of the field and getting a third of the price makes a little bit of sense. I will say, Alex Bowman put the car on pole, and finished in the top 10 at Richmond. So if that's the car, Josh Berry will be in this week. So that's kind of interesting. I think Berry and Gibbs are my two favorite, my two favorite options. I'll probably put a little bit on each of them to advance and call it a day. Let's shift over and talk about the race itself. You know, we talked about it, but Kyle Larson is the dominant force.
Just like I talked about, laying 4-1 on any of those names in a shortened field. How on earth is Kyle Larson a larger dog here at only a 24 car field than he is at a normal race where it's 5-1 when there's 36 guys
because it's an all-star race, weird stuff happens.
So what? Like, I know it's an all-star race and there's a lot more. I mean, the $1 million prize is definitely going to play a factor in terms of how aggressive these guys get late. But I mean, that doesn't take away from the fact that Kyle Larson is the best in the sport right now.
Yeah, and he's crushing short track. So yeah, I mean, are we putting 3 or 4 units on Kyle Larson to win? Yeah, Larson is compelling. Byron is also compelling, especially because DraftKings wants to give me 10-1. I'm getting double digits on my
dude is on fire.
I've been on him for 2 of his 3 wins. I would not fault anyone who goes back to him for more. Beyond those 2, I have no interest in Kevin Harvick, especially at 7-1. Like, I understand he's good, but like,
I mean, he is driving the number 29 Busch Light car, so I mean, he's throwing it back. But
yeah, I appreciate that. I like Christopher Bell a lot. I think he makes a lot of sense. I was really hoping I could get 10-1 instead of 9, but I'm not going to quibble over a few pennies. Interesting option. Obviously, he's had underwhelming season. Is it fair to say?
That's kind of crazy to say.
Based on, I guess maybe our expectations were a little bit higher, and especially the way he finished last year, and expecting him to. I mean, he's got to win, so that's definitely it's definitely something, but yeah, I don't know, but I think he is in a good spot here. I think he knows how to drive at short tracks. Did really well in the August race last year, getting second. What did he do this year at Richmond? I think he crashed. Where is he at?
Yeah, he finished 4th this
Oh,
year.
yeah, that's the opposite of crashing. Yeah, so he was 8th after stage 1, 2nd after stage 2. I don't
His
know.
worst finish at Richmond actually since 2021 is 6th.
Yeah, so pretty strong. Like him a lot, and if you can get, and maybe you maybe play the game where see if he doesn't qualify quite as well, and you can get a double digit on him. I think would be fun. Any other? I think Byron's going to go on the.
I think Martin Truex Jr. at 10-1 is
a good.
I mean, if you are betting the All-Star race, I don't know how you avoid him. Seeing how good he's been the last couple of weeks. I mean, last week he should have been the runaway winner again if it probably hadn't to do with a poor pit crew instance there, and then obviously getting a little too aggressive and ruining he and Joey Logano's day, which I'm actually thankful for that, by the way. I mean, Truex 10-1. I almost feel like anybody inside this 10-1 number has a good shot to win here. And for me, it's the reason why I'm probably not going to go in very heavy, if at all, this week, just because with that $1 million prize at the end, I think you could see some funky stuff at the end of the race. And being that it's a short track with these guys knowing that we're not going to see the high speed wrecks that we see a lot of times. It's just going to be people spinning out or something of that instance, to where it's not going to hurt the car too much for the future. So I definitely do think you're going to see a lot more contact than you normally would.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. I think it's really just to pick your own poison. I think Byron makes a lot of sense. I think Chris Bell makes sense. You made a great point on Truex. Kyle Busch being 16-1 when he's 10-1 everywhere else is really interesting.
Well, he's the kind of guy that would not be afraid to play bumper cars in order to win this.
And as someone who likes to find like value on number arbitrage, like just give me the one outlier when it's 6 points higher. So that's really compelling. The aforementioned Ross Chastain, who's not afraid to put his nose where it needs to go. Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin down to 12-1.
That's pretty good.
Really interesting.
But do we trust Denny Hamlin's pit crew to put up a good pit stop during the heat race, or to get him set up for a good heat race starting position?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
if you want to talk about putting yourself in a bad position based on your pit crew, Ryan Blaney is right after him.
Oh man.
But I'm putting him on the card at 18-1. I've been talking about it all season. I said this is the spot where he wins. Obviously, he won last year, his only win. So I'm gonna ride that. I'm gonna ride that this year and make that one of my for sure bets.
All right, I guess I'll join you on that because, like you said,
now he's definitely gonna crash.
We've been joking around about this for pretty much the entire season, and especially the last few weeks leading up to this, that this was going to be the spot that he won. So,
yeah. Do you have any interest in these longer shots, or more importantly, do you think is there anyone that you think is priced long now that by the time we get to actually racing is gonna, like, their number could be much shorter based on where they start and all that good stuff?
Well, I mean, again, it's going to come down to how well they do in the heat race, which is really going to be predicated on how well their pit crews perform for them. And, he's not great at short tracks, but one guy whose pit crew has definitely been performing, that's Bubba Wallace, 28-1. Like, he could be put in a prime position for whatever heat race he winds up being in. And then, if he can stay up front during one of those, he's got a prime starting position for the 200 lap main event on Sunday. And this is a guy who we've seen the last few weeks really elevate his driving and putting a lot of doubters to sleep here, proving that he deserves to be one mentioned amongst, the second tier of drivers. And 28-1 for a guy that has been as good as he has recently is a pretty damn good number.
Yeah. I know he's been really not good this year, but Chase Briscoe was good at Martinsville. He was in the top 10 conversation at Richmond. He is 28-1. Maybe SHR puts in a decent outing, gets him near the front. That could be someone that maybe we're talking on Saturday night and he's 16 or 15 and you feel good about locking him in at 28.
Nope. No,
Nope.
he's dead to me after backing him to potentially make the Final Four early in the season.
Yeah, that was real dumb.
Yeah, he is off. He's on my shit list.
It is funny though, because like the that's where the expectations were for him coming in the year, and I think SHR as a whole, and they'll tell you this, they're really disappointed with where they're at and their performances this season. So I'm wondering if there is a little more SHR and a little less like the drivers themselves, but definitely interesting.
I mean, I could tell you two names at the very bottom there that nobody should be betting money on, and that's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Eric Jones. We talked about it going into Darlington, like they were complete fades. It was only a matter of time that Ricky Stenhouse would live up to the name of Ricky Spinhouse, and sure enough, it happened. And then Eric Jones definitely lived up to the non-hype that I had expected going into last Sunday. So I don't see a world where either of these two guys are very competitive.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. Watch one of them. The bet I would like to see is the head-to-head, so we can bet which one crashes first.
See, again, these are the markets that I would love to see at sportsbooks, but I doubt NASCAR would be all too happy to start seeing odds put up for who's going to wreck first, or is this guy going to finish the race?
Yeah, I think finishing the race would be a little more sketchy. They in theory could put some head-to-heads together.
I like to finish on a lead lap markets.
Yeah.
Like I wish we got more of those again.
Yeah, well.
With big name drivers though, like not just BJ McLeod to finish on the lead lap,
right.
I want will Joey Logano finish on the lead lap?
Yeah, I want no props on that. Yeah. All right, I am cobbling together the bet tracker to think about who we may want to be betting. So let's start. I guess. What is your card looking like right now? Throw it up here. Is it just Ryan Blaney for you?
Yeah. So as of right now, all I got is Blaney. I'm really gonna wait to see what we get out of the qualifying stuff. I don't know. It's just hard to bet anything right now without knowing anything about the race. We don't know what they're going to look like. We have no data to go on here.
But that's also why you can get really good numbers now, and maybe you're feeling great about it right now. When it comes to race day, I think adding Kyle Larson makes some sense, especially if he gets up near the front. That number is going to get crunched. So this is where I'm looking right now. I have Blaney, that's a for sure. Byron at 10-1 is going on the card. I have Bell and then Denny, and I feel like I want to pick one, not both. So I'm gonna pontificate about that a little bit. I will make it official today, and then I'll put it in the notes once I make the decision, or I'll tweet it out. But I feel like one of these guys, like I guess Denny has the better number, but I do like Christopher Bell. If you had to bet one of them, Brian, who would you bet?
Because it's an all-star race, I would take Denny because the number is bigger. That's literally the only reason why.
Yeah. And then in terms of the Open, Josh Berry is interesting and obviously ran really well, so it's really tempting to go there. Priest is interesting. I'm gonna put Gibbs for sure. I'm just debating if I want to just do one more higher or like Justin Haley and Todd Gilliland and see if I could sneak one of them through.
So I think it's interesting if we were able to get like top 2 finish or a Quinella or something on the All-Star Open, not just the winner, because top 2 finishers of the All-Star Open advance. So you might see a situation where the top 2 guys are running away with it, and they're not going to battle for the win because why would they risk wrecking each other out and not making it to the All-Star race?
Yeah. I'm wondering. I'm guessing we're not going to get a top 3 market.
No,
maybe.
I will say BetMGM.
Caesars has it. Caesars has top 3. So Josh Berry plus 135, Ty Gibbs 140, Ryan Priest 160
for the All-Star Open. Oh,
shouts to Caesars.
Let's go.
Caesars is quickly becoming one of my favorite spots.
The numbers are gross, but
sure. But when you think about Gibbs being 4-1 to win, plus 140 to top 3 is pretty nice.
That is a pretty damn good number.
It's a fourth the odds, or a third of the odds, I guess. Fourth of the odds. I can do math, I promise. Justin Haley to top 3 is 425. Michael McDowell 425. Gillen 425. Those are all interesting. Corey LaJoy 7-1.
No interest. No way.
JJ Yaley 60-1.
No chance.
That's what you got. No chance in hell.
I mean, Dinger at plus 250. I know Colleague has looked like shit this year, but like he's never been ashamed of.
Would you rather bet Dinger at 250 or Haley or McDowell or someone at 4-1, 425?
Honestly, I'd probably go Haley or McDowell. Again, just for the number for this week, because it's simply a dart throw for me this week. It's not like I'm not claiming I know Jack, what about this weekend's race.
No, nobody does. That's why it's fun to throw darts and see what we can get to stick.
I'm trying to get out of the hole, not dig myself deeper, okay?
Let's see if we go over to the All-Star.
You may have built yourself a small little cushion, but
I'm fully intending on giving it all back this week, but that's okay. We have top 3s over here. Larson at 2-1 to top 3. Harvick, William Byron, plus 290.
So I will say the only other market that really intrigues me going into this race is any Ross Chastain versus Hendrick Motorsports driver matchups.
Yeah.
Like, I know they probably tried to squash it in the garage, and Ross Chastain made a statement today saying that he got basically reading between the lines. He got an ass chewing from Justin Marks and the Trackhouse team about his actions on the track. But like, drivers don't forget easily, and they still look to get people out. And for me, what better way to get revenge on Ross Chastain without ruining either season, because it's not going to affect their regular season point standings or anything like that, than to ruin his shot at $1 million.
I just wonder if there's a little more investment in season because they want to make him feel it a little bit more. But as you mentioned, he has a legit chance to win $1 million and they take it away from him. He'll feel that for sure. So
yeah,
I don't hate that. Kyle Larson at 2-1 is really damn tempting.
Just for top 3.
Yeah.
The thing though, again too, like if this was a regular race, I would say, oh, for sure. Like that's a great number, but you're adding in the $1 million bonus thing. I mean, how aggressive are people going to get at the end to try to win that $1 million?
It depends. Like you said, if there's just two guys who've clearly separated themselves, maybe not aggressive. If there's 4 or 5 drivers that are really fighting for it, maybe a lot more aggressive. So, all right, let's recap. Let's give the people a initial. So we both like Ryan Blaney, obviously. Like you can see the units, they're gonna be small this week. We're not getting over our skis, and like Brian said, don't want to give it all back in one weekend. There's matchups.
Yeah, there's Caesars has matchups. I think DK has matchups as well.
Let's go to matchups. Oh, that might be the move.
I'll have a little fun here. I'll just
Logano minus 135. So Logano seems obviously had some good runs. Seems to be getting a little steam in terms of the head-to-heads and some of the finishing position. He was kind of juiced down. So that's something to think about. Chris Bell minus 112. Bubba over Brad, I like where your head's at. Larson over Harvick, I like that, even at minus 118. Truex over Harvick at minus 110 is kind of fun. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. If you like Kyle Busch, you can get minus 110 over Ryan Blaney, where he's minus 118 over at FanDuel.
okay. And then
there you go.
Right
you can get Chase.
I saw this earlier in the day, and I was like, man, that looks like. I just think there's a world where it's like Team Hendrick versus Ross Chastain.
Yeah, if Josh Berry gets in, he's definitely taking him out.
Exactly my point. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris Bell, yeah. I like William Byron, but I don't like him that much over Chris Bell, and I probably should take him over Truex, but I don't love the minus 112 on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to bet any of these just because of the situation that we're in. And then, Caesars has an interesting matchup. Eric Jones versus Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Where's the? Here we go. I can pull it up. So they do have that. So we can bet who crashes first.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Those are the kind of matchups I want to see more often, honestly.
Let's see. Is it scheduled? Yeah. So Briscoe's a pretty big favorite over Daniel Suarez. Bell versus Truex. I kind of like Bell there. As you mentioned, Eric Jones and Ricky Stenhouse. Who crashes first? Just bet the other one. Logano over Kyle. I'm going to bet that one.
Logano is really good at short tracks.
Yeah, and it's just based on what I'm seeing in other markets. Like that's how you kind of find opportunities, because maybe you don't want to bet him as a big favorite, or maybe his number is a little too short in terms of a top 10 or whatever. But you can get a decent number, and then find value. So I'm going to do that.
Let me just say, it's a good thing that NASCAR has that $1 million incentive for drivers, because we're in a situation where Kevin Harvick is basically going out at, it's his swan song season, because if there was no $1 million, I would be betting everything that Harvick would win the race, because the garage would be like, oh yeah, we got to get Harv in the victory lane here.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Chase Elliott getting plus money over Kevin Harvick is interesting too.
Again, regular scenario, regular season, I'm smash playing that.
This is your opportunity, Brian. You might not get it in the regular season.
My card will definitely get slightly larger after we see the qualifying stuff, because I got to see who's doing what.
Yeah. I'm probably going to add to mine units wise, not necessarily outrights wise. So Blaney is for sure. Byron is for sure. I'm going to pick one of Denny and Bell. You know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go Chris Bell. I like him too much. So those are my 3 outrights for the All-Star race. I am going to go Ty Gibbs to win the Open. I should put Open in here. And obviously, if he makes, if whoever makes the Open, or whoever makes it from the Open, we can update at that point. So I have Ty Gibbs to win. I have Justin Haley to top 3. Once again, very small units. We're not getting aggressive here. The one thing I will say is Logano over Kyle Busch is going to be my best bet as we sit here today. Brian, if you don't have a best bet, you don't have to make one, especially since it's All-Star Week. We're not going to force your hand, but I do like that a lot, especially if you can get the minus 105.
Yeah, no. And then, as Kyle said, my card is very small right now. All I have is the Ryan Blaney outright for a quarter unit, just because, I mean, this is when he wins. And then my one matchup of Bubba over Keselowski, just out of spite. And that is going to be my best bet, because when you look at the difference in the way that they're driving, yes, Keselowski finished ahead of Bubba last weekend, but in terms of consistency, Bubba Wallace and that 2311 team have been quite possibly the second or third best team this season when you look at how good he and Tyler Reddick are both running. So I'm going to go Bubba Wallace over Keselowski as my best bet here.
I like that. I like that a lot. Let's see here. So I am going to stop sharing. I am going to change to this one. Okay, let us know down in the comments. Are you betting NASCAR this week? Are you betting the Open? Are you betting the All-Star race? Do you have a favorite outright? Do you have another bet that you found, a head-to-head, top 3, something that you really, really like? Let us know down in the comments. If you have been riding with us this far and you are not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It does do a lot for us. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs. We'll try and do like a giveaway of some sort. As we approach that, we'll get a better idea of what that may be. Make sure you smash the like. Make sure you share it with your friends. Tell anybody, all your NASCAR friends, your betting friends. Let's spread the sport. Let's spread the word of the Angle of Pursuit. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week. We will be back on Saturday after everything is done. We'll be in your feed Sunday morning. We will talk to you next time.